Hello everyone, welcome to Wrestling with Green Pinstripes. I'm your host Kalind, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about the SmackDown Live after WrestleMania 34. Let's get on with it, shall we? SmackDown Live kicks off with Shane McMahon entering the ring, congratulating the WWE Universe in New Orleans for a great WrestleMania week, which includes the Hall of Fame ceremony, NXT TakeOver, Mania, Raw after Mania, and the SmackDown after Mania. So he was thanking the crowd, and also he was also thanking Daniel Bryan to have the opportunity to team up together to face Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And they won the match. That means Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are off of SmackDown. And Shane announced that Daniel Bryan has resigned from his position as SmackDown General Manager, and Shane accepted it. And because of that, Daniel Bryan has resigned from General Manager to resume as a full-time superstar in the WWE. The person who will fill the void of Daniel Bryan's role is Paige, who 24 hours ago was announcing her retirement from in-ring competition on Raw. So 24 hours later, she becomes the general manager of SmackDown. And personally, I wanted this idea for a long time. Since February, I wanted this idea. In March, it really took off in March, especially when Daniel Bryan announced his return to in-ring competition. And of course, when WWE cleared him to return to the ring, I said that because Daniel Bryan is cleared to return, he's going to be leaving the general manager position of SmackDown, and I think Paige should fill the void. And somebody in WWE, namely Vince McMahon, took that idea. So kudos. Thank you for using my idea. It's better than having Hulk Hogan or Jeff Jarrett. I was like, we don't need old ideas from a different wrestling promotion. Let's try something new for once. And plus, Paige is the youngest general manager in SmackDown history. I wouldn't say the youngest GM overall in all of WWE, because I think AJ Lee was the same age as Paige is right now at the time when AJ Lee was the general manager of Raw back in 2012, but I have to check my sources on that. Anyways, Paige made her entrance and addressed the SmackDown audience, and she announced that because Daniel Bryan is resumed to return to in-ring competition full-time, he'll be making his SmackDown return competing. And originally, when she says he's gonna face, paused, and then there was a chant of Rusev Day, which, if you were watching it on Hulu or on YouTube, you probably wouldn't have noticed, but on the USA Network during the original broadcast, there were Rusev Day chants, and then she had to ask again, will face, and then eventually fans are chanting AJ Styles, so she announced that Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles will face off in the main event of SmackDown later that evening. Now, for the censorship of the Rusev Day chants, I don't blame Shane or Paige on this. This is definitely on Vince McMahon. So yeah, I am praising Vince and criticizing him at the same time on the same podcast. So yeah, it's definitely on Vince, but some are saying that this could be a work. So maybe we are being worked into a shoot. I have no idea. But I mean, it is definitely definitely a good opener, and plus one of my favorites is now the general manager of SmackDown. So yeah, I'm I'm pretty happy about it. And of course, before the commercial break, it was announced that Usos and New Day will face off for the number one contendership to face the Bludgeon Brothers at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Now, the only part that didn't make sense was that Usos were champions, therefore they already had an automatic rematch clause. But my guess is that one of the two tag teams will be moved to Raw in the Superstar Shakeup, so that could be the reason why, but still, it's pretty confusing. So let's see what happens after the commercial break. After the commercial break was the Usos versus the New Day for the number one contendership to face the Bludgeon Brothers at the Greatest Royal Rumble in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Aside from that one tidbit where the Usos had a contractual rematch obligation that was waived, it was a decent match between the Usos and New Day. Not as good as their pay-per-view bouts, but this is television, so yeah, I mean, like, it was still a pretty good match, for near the end, and at the end, the Usos win to face the Bludgeon Brothers in Saudi Arabia at the Greatest Royal Rumble. So let's see what happens. And with the superstar shakeup looming, could the New Day or the Usos head to Raw? We have no idea. After the commercial break, there was a backstage segment that happened earlier that night before SmackDown went on the air, where Naomi was interviewed by Dasha Fuentes about her win at the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal, and then that got an argument with Natalya, and then the two decided to face each other in the ring, which led to this match, Naomi versus Natalya. Overall, I thought it was an okay match, nothing too special. I think they did this match mainly because one of them is going to be leaving for Raw in the Superstar Shakeup, so I guess either Naomi or Natalya is having a farewell match on SmackDown, so I guess you could say that. And after that match, there was a backstage segment where Renee was interviewing Shinsuke Nakamura on why he did what he did at WrestleMania, meaning like low blowing and snapping and whatever. And Nakamura pretended to apologize, but you could tell he really didn't mean it because he winked at Renee, so you could tell he really wasn't sorry. And Renee, he even said that you seem very disingenuous. Can you at least explain why you did that? And then Nakamura, before he left, he said, "Sorry, no speak English." I mean, and that got the crowd laughing a little. I mean, despite the fact that Nakamura was a heel, that was kind of funny to hear. And from what I heard on PWP Nation, that Shinsuke Nakamura spent most of his pro wrestling career as a heel. So I think this is the role that he's better suited than a babyface. So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to see how Nakamura does as a heel going forward. Let's see what happens. And before the commercial break, Charlotte Flair is heading towards the ring to address her victory over Asuka and ending Asuka's undefeated streak at WrestleMania. So let's see what happens. After the commercial break, Charlotte came out to the ring and pretty much celebrated her win over Asuka, ending the undefeated streak, but then got interrupted by the Iconic duo, which is now the Iconics thanks to a trademark issue that WWE had. So now that Billie Kay and Peyton Royce are on SmackDown, they made their presence known by ambushing Charlotte and pretty much like beating her up, like a 2-on-1 assault. And I mean, I thought it was a pretty interesting debut for Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, the two Australian ladies. And I know that even got an NXT chant, which it was pretty nice, but I think that's probably going to be toned down going forward. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good, the way to debut. And the only issue I had was that Peyton Royce struggled to lift Charlotte to get drag her body back into the ring. So yeah, that was kind of weird. But then afterwards, when they were heading back to the stage, Carmella decides to use that opportunity to cash in Money in the Bank. And the funniest part was that Mike Chioda hesitated a little bit. I joked that night, when I watched it, that maybe Mike Chioda farted. So maybe he farted just to get it out of his system. That's why he hesitated to tell the announcer that Carmella's cashing in Money in the Bank. But it turns out to be a success. Carmella pinned Charlotte, and now Carmella is the new SmackDown Women's Champion. So yeah, that was a pretty cool moment, and I think in hindsight, it was the right call for Charlotte to retain her SmackDown Women's title at WrestleMania. And now the heat is off of that, and Carmella is the new SmackDown Women's Champion. So yeah, that was definitely an interesting moment going for that. And we shall see how Carmella's run as SmackDown Women's Champion goes forward. And unlike Nia Jax, who didn't have the custom side plates, Carmella got the custom side plates. So I think Carmella is going to be SmackDown Women's Champion longer. Who knows? But we'll see what happens after the commercial break. After the commercial break was the triple threat contenders, number one contenders match for the United States Championship, which also had a confusing stipulation because Orton was the U.S. champion heading to WrestleMania, and he lost the title to Jinder Mahal at WrestleMania, and he already had an automatic rematch clause, but I guess they waived that too. But overall, it was a decent match, pretty good, and it looked like Rusev was gonna win for Rusev Day, but it looks like Rusev Day was not good for him as Randy Orton wins the number one contenders and will face Jinder Mahal at Backlash for the U.S. title. So yeah. The rivalry between Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal resumes, which a lot of people had issues with last year, and my personal opinion is they both should go to Raw. Take that rivalry over to Raw, move the U.S. title back to Raw, bring the Intercontinental title over to SmackDown. It was at least on Raw, they would be booked better with Ed Koskey than with Road Dogg and Ryan Ward and whoever is on the SmackDown crew. But at least the Jinder Mahal Randy Orton rivalry would be booked slightly better on Raw, even though it's a bit annoying. And plus, they got Bobby Lashley on Monday Night Raw, so let's see what happens. Then again, it's a superstar shakeup soon, so we got to see what happens going forward. And before the commercial break, they teased that up next would be AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan, which is considered a dream match by many, and the fact is that AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan faced each other in the independent circuits in Ring of Honor back in the early days of Ring of Honor, when AJ Styles was mostly in TNA due to a ROH TNA working agreement back then, and Daniel Bryan was one of the founding fathers of Ring of Honor back when he was Bryan Danielson. So yeah, it's definitely a throwback to the old days for the main event of SmackDown before the superstar shakeup. So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to see this. After the commercial break, there was a backstage interview with Dasha Fuentes interviewing Carmella, who is the new SmackDown Women's Champion, and Carmella was pretty much showing her excitement as the new SmackDown Women's Champion. And then Dasha asked Carmella about Billy and Peyton, and her response was like, "Who?" So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how things will go forward for Carmella as the SmackDown Women's Champion. And one funny part that I thought was interesting was that when they were showing the commentators talking, I think Corey was arguing with Byron Saxton, and I think he threw a pencil at Byron and then it ricocheted to Tom Phillips. So yeah, a pencil was thrown at Tom Phillips. So in the words of Milton Friedman, look at this lead pencil. Yeah, that's just, I'm gonna leave it there. And before the main event, AJ Styles was interviewed by Renee Young, and she asked him about Shinsuke's apology, and then AJ Styles said, "I don't need no apology," and he said that he'll deal with Shinsuke Nakamura later on. So that is that. And before the commercial break, Daniel Bryan made his entrance, and so did AJ Styles. So let's see how the match between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles goes on the SmackDown Live after Mania. Overall, the Bryan versus Styles match was pretty good. It wasn't their classics in Ring of Honor, but because of TV time, they had to restrain themselves a little bit. But still, it was a pretty good match, and plus, both of them are really great competitors, so they brought the best out of each other. And at the end of the day, Shinsuke Nakamura interfered and attacked Daniel Bryan first, so I think Daniel Bryan wins by disqualification, and then he proceeds to give AJ Styles a bigger beating compared to Sunday at WrestleMania. So yeah, I think the story between Styles and Nakamura is not over, and I know that fans were upset when the match ended in a DQ or no contest, depending on what happened. But if the fans are upset, that means Nakamura did his job as a heel. That's all I could say. If the fans are upset, then he did his job as a heel. So yeah, it's definitely going to be intriguing going forward to see what's going to happen between Styles and Nakamura, barring the superstar shakeup. And if Styles, Bryan, and Nakamura stay on the same brand after the superstar shakeup, we could see a potential another SmackDown 6, like the Paul Heyman era of SmackDown. So yeah, I mean, like, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what will happen. And I'm hoping with the superstar shakeup, the pendulum will swing to the blue brand, because last year Raw got mostly the better stars of the shakeup. So I'm hoping the pendulum swings to the blue side. So yeah, that's all I gotta say for SmackDown. Overall, it was a pretty good show. I mean, like, nothing. It's not like Raw after Mania. I mean, you can't really compare the two. It's apples and oranges, because Raw after Mania is pretty much Raw after Mania. SmackDown after Mania, it wasn't like a. It wasn't. It's not supposed to be like Raw after Mania. It's supposed to be its own. I mean, like, it's supposed to be its own unique thing, and I enjoyed it because 3 of my favorites were featured on the show, and 3 of my favorites were utilized correctly. So I'm pretty thrilled about the SmackDown going forward and the Paige era. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty excited to see what will happen with Paige as the general manager of SmackDown, and plus the youngest general manager in SmackDown history. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I'm going to give it a B+. I'll give a grade with a bit of a curve. I mean, like, I generally don't do that, but I'm going to grade it with a bit of a curve because the opening and the closing segments were pretty good. So I'm going to grade this on a curve, despite, like, the few issues that I had were Naomi versus Natalya, but that was just a throwaway match, and the fact that the champions who lost their titles weren't given an automatic rematch clause. So, but I mean, overall, I can overlook that part, but it was a pretty good show. So let's see what happens. And as I said on my Raw review, the Superstar Shakeup review will not be a review of Raw or SmackDown. Rather, it will be me sharing my thoughts on who's switching brands. So that's all I'm going to say, and that will be coming up next time. So this is Wrestling with Green Pinstripes. This is the SmackDown Synopsis, and I'll see you next time.